Everyone, I am Angela F. Reason, the clerk of Newport News Circuit Court, and I am extremely excited to continue in on our Conversations with the Clerk series. And before I get started, I just want to apologize to everyone in advance because I have a slight cough and my voice is off just a little bit this evening, but the information that we will be conveying today was just so important that we could not chance to reschedule this tonight. So thank you all for joining us. Tonight, I am honored to be joined with some fantastic individuals that I have the pleasure of doing business with on a frequent basis. Tonight with us, we have Christian Gray, who is our land records supervisor here at the Newport News Circuit Court. We could not do what we do in our land records division without Christian. So thank you, Christian, for joining us.
Thank you.
We also have our newly appointed city attorney, whom I am so proud of. Our city council really did an amazing job with appointing you. So Mr. Robert, AKA Bob Pealo.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks.
And then we also have with us Alan Tanner, who will also introduce the amazing young lady who is with him today. So guys, I want you to give the public a brief opening and give them a little bit of information about what you all do as it relates to Dee's being an attorney and or title examination.
I'll start. My name's Alan Tanner. Thank you, Angela, for having this series. I think this is one of the just best things that you can do as a clerk to introduce us to what you do down in Newport News for all of the citizens locally. What I've found over my years, I'm an attorney. I've been practicing law here for 47 years, and I started doing title searches back almost 50 years ago. So I have seen the various clerks' offices, the various clerks. We have an outstanding history here in Newport News of some very fine people doing excellent jobs in this position. And I'm so pleased that you are continuing that wonderful tradition, and I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
With that said, I'm a real estate lawyer. I have spent my entire career helping people buy and sell houses, buying and selling real estate. And the one thing I've seen so far as a quick introduction is that there's so much fear of this transaction by the general public. They're scared. We've got to instill hope and give them the information they need to eliminate the fear that surrounds real estate and all the things that could happen. And we'll be addressing some of those tonight. And more importantly than that, and this is Cindy Arrington, who is with me. She is a delight. She's been with me for 2 years, and she is assisting me with the probate process. When someone passes away, there are legal issues that affect real estate. And we have worked, and Cindy has worked very closely with your office in trying to eliminate, again, that fear and allow them to mourn the loss of a loved one rather than rushing around trying to do a whole bunch of things that take time.
Absolutely.
We're all sensitive to protect their rights and the rights of the other heirs that are involved. And it's just it's a pleasure for us to be here. We look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Christian, we'll go with you, and then City Attorney, I want to go with you after Mr. Gray.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Christian Gray. I'm the land record supervisor here at the Newport News Circuit Court Clerk's Office. I joined Ms. Reason in 2020 when she came in. And I'm in charge of the land records department. So that means continuing the legacy of our land records, regardless of who's in charge, making sure that people's permanent records are protected, they're kept safe. And Madam Clerk has continued these conversations because education is such an important part of her platform, right? There's a lot of information asymmetry. So people don't know what the responsibilities of the clerk's office are. That's part of the reason why I was so glad to join her staff, is just so that way we can educate the public. Local elections always have the lowest turnout. but they're the most responsive. Our positions here are so important because they're the ones that directly affect us. So I think these conversations are very necessary because deeds and land records transactions are so important.
Mhm.
So thank you all
Thank you,
for having
sir.
me again.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Pealo.
All right, well, I'm Bob Pealo. I'm just finishing out my first month as city attorney, but I've been with the office here since January of 2007, so 17 years. Probably been doing real estate for a good part of that. I'd say at least 10 to 15 years I've been handling most of the city's voluntary real estate transactions. So I really do appreciate your office, Clerk Reason, and all the fine work that your folks do over there and have done for years. Make our jobs a lot easier when the records over there are as well maintained and
Thank you.
as they are. I come from things from a different perspective than Mr. Tanner, perhaps. I'm not engaged in the private practice of law. We're representing the city over here. So a lot of our acquisitions are acquiring easements for utility projects or road projects or acquiring parcels for city facilities. So we're not so much involved with assisting the public in their land acquisitions like Mr. Tanner might be. We're coming at it from the municipal perspective and trying to do the best we can for our taxpayers,
Absolutely.
the city as a whole. But yeah, I've seen through the years some pretty crazy things in deeds and in the land records. And Mr. Tanner mentioned the probate process, and some of the parcels that we deal with are acquisitions for tax delinquent properties that maybe, the owner died 30 years ago and nobody's paid taxes on it since, and you're trying to comb through the heirs of that. And it can just be a complete nightmare if you don't have good records. So title searches can be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
And I'm fortunate to have a really good staff over here. Our paralegal, Cindy Jenkins, does a really good job. And I know she's works closely with your staff from time to time.
Absolutely.
And I'm just excited to be here, and thank you for asking me.
Absolutely. So thank you all so much for joining us again. And Bob, thank you for what your staff does. One thing that in the clerk's office, we have to convey to the general public is that we are not attorneys in the clerk's office. I'm not an attorney. My staff, they're not attorneys. The only attorneys that we have, of course, are our judges, who also are not authorized to give legal advice. And so when we have legal questions from our standpoint, we reach out to Mr. Pealo and we reach out to his paralegal, Ms. Cindy Jenkins. So definitely kudos to her. And they are our legal experts. And so when we need assistance from that standpoint, we reach out to them. So thank you also for the work that your office does. I do see a question, and we are going to answer questions towards the end of the event, but our Zoom will be recorded. Prior conversations with the clerks, they have also been recorded. They will be loaded on YouTube through the clerk's office YouTube page. If you're on Facebook or Instagram, it's Newport News Circuit Court Clerk. Our YouTube page is on there, and it's also on our city website, which is Newport News Circuit Court. So the prior conversations with the clerk is loaded there currently, and the rest of them will also be loaded on the YouTube page, as well as the one that we are doing tonight. So we decided to do this conversations with the clerk because the office started receiving emails about deed fraud and deed protection. And typically that is how our conversations with the clerk come about. Any legislation that's come up that's new, that impacts the circuit court level, anything that's a hot topic, so to say, instead of people speculating, we like to bring the information directly to you. And so about 6 months ago, we began receiving emails because AARP put out an article about deed fraud and the elderly being scammed out of their properties for different reasons. And so here we are today. So we will be discussing deed fraud and title examination. So I want to shoot it to our attorneys that are on. Have you heard of this being an issue, or can you all tell us what examples would be, or is it a real thing?
Let me start, and thank you so much for that. I got a call about 3 months ago from one of my dear friends. She owned a property here in Newport News. She and her husband had bought it. It was their house. They bought it, and then they bought a house, a piece of property without a house right behind their property. So it was a vacant lot. She calls me at we were here about 8:30 in the morning, and says, Alan, what's going on? I was in my soft clothes, in her pajamas, and somebody knocked on her front door and said, ma'am, can we go through your backyard to take a look at the lot behind you that's for sale?
Mm.
She had no clue. We immediately jumped into action. That property had been listed on one of the national listing websites and was listed by a local seasoned realtor who knew their business well and had formerly had FBI training and knew a little bit about this stuff.
Right.
But they had no clue that the two driver's license for her and her husband were their license. They had been stolen and somehow copied and were part of the signed listing agreement that put the house up for sale. And they were hanging out there, and typically that's how one of these frauds start. That home was listed. They were going to have people looking at it, and it would have been sold within a matter of days because it's a fairly popular area and was a very nice lot. Boy, does that give you pause. What the heck happened here? And we couldn't get to the bottom of it, really. The agent was very helpful and used his FBI experience to go through. How did you get the driver's license? How did they have all this done without a stopgap?
Right.
So it is real. It is around the corner. And everybody I talk to now, when we talk about it a lot at the closings and what title insurance does to protect you, there's a story out there where there's a scam on an elderly person or one of their family members. So it is a real thing. It is very hard to predict, and you better be ready and with the right people you can refer people to if something happens. And that's what Bob could certainly weigh in on if it comes to his office, and procedures to contact investigative authorities and city through the city and the city's police department to try to prevent this from happening. But it's here.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's definitely a real thing. And it can take multiple forms. It could be somebody forging a deed and getting a notary, or fooling a notary into notarizing the signature, and then that with the clerk's office. It could be somebody scamming somebody into signing a document that they haven't had thoroughly reviewed or reviewed by an attorney and signing their rights away without realizing what they were doing. Could also be, I think there have been examples in the past of folks taking advantage of some other people and got reverse mortgages on their properties without So it is definitely a real thing, and it kind of highlights the importance of having title insurance on your parcel and conducting a thorough title examination of any property that you're looking to buy.
Right. And so with that being said, I do want to acknowledge two of our school board members that are on. I want to acknowledge Marissa Alger and also her husband, Tim, that are all on. I also would like to acknowledge school board member Dr. Terry Best, who submitted the first question of the evening. And that was her question. How much of a possibility are we at risk for title fraud? And she said the commercials are frightening. And so you all just confirmed that it is a real thing. And so now that we understand that it's a real thing, and these types of things have happened in our backyard and they can happen, what suggestions do you all have for the general public to protect themselves?
In my business, the biggest protection they have is title insurance. And let me just quickly explain what when you buy a house, the bank who loans you money wants a policy of insurance to protect their loan that they have put against your property. That's called lender's title insurance. That affords very little assistance to the actual homeowner. It protects the bank in case there's a fraud, but it may not protect, indirectly it could, but it may not protect the homeowner from incurring legal fees and those kinds of things necessary to remedy the problem. So that's lender's title insurance. It's going to be required typically with every loan. Then there's the regular homeowner's title insurance that you get. It's called owner's insurance.
Mm-hmm.
For years here, we would go back 60 years and check titles. I mean, go back into the clerk's office history and come up 60 years. And with the computers, we're able to do that quickly and efficiently now. We used to pull out the big books and check it all out. And a lot of people relied on that system and didn't buy homeowners title insurance to protect the owner.
Mm-hmm.
The state finally said, Mr. Lawyer, if you're going to conduct a settlement, you're going to offer title insurance to protect the future owner. I can't emphasize it enough. Even though the lender has their lender's coverage, you get owner's title insurance. Owner's title insurance. Then about, I guess maybe now 10, 15 years ago, as things started happening with various issues that come up, with fraud situations, they instituted another, a little more expensive coverage, about 10 to 20% more than the one-time owner's title insurance premium. It's not expensive. It costs less than your insurance policy for 1 year typically. It's not that expensive, but this is called enhanced or homeowners title insurance. Get the enhanced coverage because it can protect you from certain types of title fraud, where people have come in and stolen your title and are attempting to convey it to someone else, or in fact have conveyed it to someone else. The homeowner can get, with the enhanced homeowner's title insurance policy, and every title company knows about it, get it, pay the extra money, because that protects you from this typical title fraud. And Title Lock and various other companies offer this coverage. But if you've purchased that when you buy the home for an extra $1,000 maybe, that protects you for your lifetime.
Right.
Ever. You don't have to pay it every year. You're done. So I encourage the understanding of that. And I keep pounding the table over my 47 years. Put a lawyer at your closing table. We're not some big, huge extra charge. We are competitive with lay title agencies. We've been doing this a long time, and we really want to help our people. We insure the transaction in many ways as a lawyer. Lay agencies can come and go, but we're here with malpractice coverage. We're here. We're not perfect. We can goof up, but we have the backing and have hopefully the experience to handle these just as well as a title company. And I certainly pound the table. Put a lawyer at the closing table, either as a seller or as a purchaser, so that we can, as Bob will tell you, kind of help with that transaction.
It does help to have a lawyer as part of that transaction. In addition to title insurance, some things you can do, it's really mostly just going to sound like common sense, is, watch for any unfamiliar bills or letters you get in your mail. Calls from debt collectors that you aren't familiar with, because that could be an indication that somebody has done something or is attempting to do something with your property without your knowledge. And if you get something like that, go down to the clerk's office and check and see if there's been anything filed on your property.
And we do have that sometime, where people will come down here and they'll just say, hey, did you receive a filing or a recording for this address or this name? And that is not legal advice. We can definitely look that up for you, and anything that is public information, we can share that. One of the emails that we received not too long ago was a question, and I'm going to shoot this to you, Christian, asking about the elderly being frauded as it relates to receiving a copy of their deed. They said that they've heard that sometimes in certain areas that they've heard that home buyers or quote unquote investors, we've all heard of these serial investors, but they'll go and say, hey, we need hundreds of dollars in order to get a copy of your deed from a clerk's office. Christian, can you share with the public a little bit about how much our copies cost? Now, I will say this, every clerk's office is different. Some of their fees may differ. But I don't believe that you're ever going to go to a clerk's office and it's going to be hundreds upon hundreds of dollars for a copy of a deed. So Christian, can you share with the public how they can request a copy from us
Absolutely.
and how much it
Absolutely.
costs, or how they can get a copy themselves also?
Absolutely. So you have the option to come into the clerk's office during our regular business hours, 8 a.m. to 4:15, to take copy requests. Our copies are 50 cents a page for deeds, as opposed to that hundreds of dollars. And we had customers that have received letters in the mail, and they brought them into us and asked if this was a service that they should enroll in. And then when they found out that we charge 50 cents a page as opposed to that $100 that the company in California is charging, they were like, wow, this is a significantly better option. So it's 50 cents a page for our deeds. And then if you want the copy to be certified with our affixing our seal and our stamp to it, it's an additional $2.
Mm-hmm.
So,
All right. Now, one of the questions that we get, sometimes people come in here, and we do have terminals in the office where you are able to view public records. We have two different subscriptions. One is for officer of the court, so of course attorneys, and then we have secure remote access that the general public can purchase a subscription for. But they will ask us questions such as, hey, can you all sit down and kind of go through this with me? Can you explain how this deed transferred over? But that gets more into the title examination part of things. And Alan and Bob, I know you touched a little bit about title examination, but can you explain to the public exactly what title examination is, what it entails, and what it entails?
Sure. Title examination is really just going back through all the documents that are recorded in the clerk's office on a particular piece of property and trying to verify that the person who owns it actually owns it, and going back through the chain and making sure that each conveyance conveyed everything to the next person. And you look for any sort of offshoots that maybe don't match up and see, just to verify that you can take it back, like Mr. Tanner said earlier, 60 years or more.
Mm-hmm.
Just to verify that every step through that chain, that the person who's conveyed it on to the next person actually owned that title, so that you can be sure that you're purchasing something from somebody who actually owns it.
What often comes up as part of what Bob was just saying is we also check not only what's in the clerk's office in the deed records, we also check for judgments that are against individuals. Here's how the law works. Say you have somebody who passes away. The moment that person passes away, either with or without a will, boom, the property is transferred to their heirs or devisees. It is nothing, you know, whether you want it to happen or not, it is yours. And then everything that's filed of record against you or your brother or your sister or uncle or whoever's in that heir property chain, we have to check judgments that may be issued against other owners of the property that people have in their family. And we find a lot of things with extended families where there are judgments. We check for those. They can be devastating. Things like IRS liens, things like support liens, various things will show up in your clerk's office records that could really determine the outcome of the disbursement of funds on that estate, because those have to be paid in many cases. And you have a system that we check. We check for financing statements. We even go to the PACER system and check for bankruptcies that people might be involved in. Everything that might be in the courthouse, and then even things that are not always in your local courthouse, but might be in the federal courthouse. You got to be extra vigilant. And that's what we all try to do as part of our regular job, is to protect everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, wow, you all have given us a lot of information. Yeah, thank you.
I'm trying to eliminate the fear.
Yes, you've given us a lot of information. And so I know when the housing market was really booming, especially, during COVID, when those interest rates were 2%, we kept hearing that people were foregoing inspections and title searches and just all types of things. What is your view on when you're purchasing a home or investing in a property? Do you all recommend that the buyer do a title search?
It is going to be required by their lender. That is our big protection in the background, because that bank and that mortgage company is not going to give you a home equity line, a loan, a VA loan or an FHA loan, unless that title search is done and they have an actual title insurance policy that protects them for the duration of their loan, typically 30 years with many of the mortgages. And that's sort of, we got a backstop there that helps us in a lot of ways. But we're seeing a lot of cash transactions now. People are neglecting in their haste to, put together a deal fast and convince the seller to sell the house to them, to forego things like title searches, home inspections, these things that are essential to protecting your investment. Because when you're putting your cash dollars in there and that goes away, that hurts.
Absolutely.
That hurts. And you want to do everything you can to follow the same rules every time a house is closed. I recommend a home inspection. I recommend a title search. I recommend title insurance to give you the fullest protection whenever you're buying, selling, or financing any real estate. Because you may be getting another mortgage on the property and you didn't even know that you didn't have title insurance when you bought it, but you can get it. Always inquire as to, can I buy title insurance, or do I need to buy title insurance to protect you whenever you get a loan? I think that's a good practice by the public. Say, hey, I know the lender's going to get it. Doesn't really help you as a buyer or someone financing it. Follow up. Check to make sure you've got the proper insurance policy on your side.
Okay. So we've been seeing these commercials. I know I have. And I've had it come up on like my Google feed about home title lock and life lock home title protect. Can you all explain what that is, and in your opinion, if owners and investors should consider home title lock?
I'm not really familiar with those products, so I'll defer to Mr. Tanner on that one.
Okay.
I got a lot of paperwork in front of me. Excuse me 1 minute, because I want to make sure when I talked about that third coverage, that homeowners enhanced title insurance policy, that really protects you from things that home title lock does. Now, I'm not saying, hey, don't do home title lock. If you're really convinced, hey, this sounds great, I need it. But your enhanced title insurance policy does protect you from the same thing. So just as I said earlier, when you go to finance it, check and see go get your policy of title insurance. You should have gotten your original deed and your title insurance policy in a package when you bought your home. It may have come a few weeks afterwards, but go find it. Everybody that's watching that doesn't know, go find your deed and go find your title insurance policy. And then we can ask that same question and we might be able to tell you the answer. And if we don't know it, we sure know who to call that will help you get it. And again, if you're asked that question, ask them to go home, get their title insurance policy. Because I bet you 75% of the homeowners have an owner's title insurance policy now. I rarely do it. Some of the refinancing parties that bought homes years and years ago may not have it, but the public has it now. They're getting smart to this, and it does protect you maybe from the same thing that title lock protects you from. It's just another service that certainly sounds good, but you might not need it if you have that coverage right there in your own home.
So in a nutshell, make sure that you're educated on what you do have.
Yes, what you paid for. And it's
Exactly.
all on your settlement statement, that piece of paper with all those numbers. That's an important thing to look at, because that will be how we can discover if you got owner's policy, because in the normal HUD statement, it's singled out there. So deed, owner's title insurance, and if you're not sure, get your settlement statement out and take a peek at it.
Okay. So as far as the enhanced homeowners insurance, is that also available for property that was inherited if they didn't purchase it per se, but they inherited the property?
Absolutely. You're an owner of the property and you have the right to contact a title insurance company and say, hey, I'm going to own it. I'm going to live in it. I'm going to keep it. And I want to protect myself from the normal things that an owner's title insurance policy would have as an heir and someone that you own the property. You're a homeowner. You didn't know it was going to happen, but it's there and it protects you from zoning violations, subdivision law violations, all of these things that could have happened in the past that you wouldn't have a clue about because your deceased party owned the home.
Right.
But it's a very good thing, Angela, and I highly recommend that with heir property. And because we're going to make sure, and that's one of Cindy's jobs, that we do everything we can to get all the heirs together to figure out, do they just want to sell it and move down the road? Or do we want to, one of the heirs wants to keep it and live in granddaddy's house? Who knows? But always inquire about title insurance as a property owner.
Okay.
Figure it out.
Okay. So if someone wants to prepare a deed, and I will say we get asked this in the clerk's office all the time. We get a question and the question is typically, hey, can I do this deed by myself? And we're like, well, you can, but the only advice we can give you is you may want to consult an attorney that's licensed to practice law in the state of Virginia. And so
I'll let you start with that.
Yes. And so if a person wanted to prepare a deed, they begin with consulting someone that knows what they're doing, right?
That would definitely be my recommendation.
Okay.
You want to consult with an attorney or somebody who knows what they're doing so that you ensure the deed is the format you need it to be in and that you're getting the rights that you're buying.
Absolutely. And then I'm gonna kick this to you, Christian, because the next question we typically get is, well, what does your office look for in terms of the requirements for a deed? So, Mr. Supervisor, when you get that question, what would you say?
Yeah, so we look for, is it an original document with wet signatures? Is it properly notarized? Do we have who prepared the document? We also now require the Virginia Land Records cover sheet, which we didn't previously require. So that started July of 2021. So that needs to be affixed to the document. But when it comes to questions of legality and are we checking into it, that's not something that the clerk's office is responsible for. So when they're bringing in a true document, and if it looks to be in the format of what we're looking for, we're going to take it in, we're going to scan the document, and we're going to record it. It's the responsibility of the attorney or of the preparer to ensure that it's in the proper format. And we assess the fees and record it.
And that's where the frauds occur, the forgeries occur, where they come to Christian. Christian looks at it. He looks at the notary. He relies on that notary, and that notary certifying that so-and-so signed that deed, acknowledged it in their presence. And that is swirling now with a lot of controversy since we're doing out-of-state notaries on your e-recordings. Guys, it's really exposing all of us as consumers and the general public to these frauds or forgeries where they're geniuses that are wasting their smarts figuring ways to get our money. If they all used it for something more productive, we'd have a wonderful world, but they're not. They're trying to get something from us. And forgeries are protected by title insurance. And Christian is the last stop that tries to make sure it appears to be something that's not a forgery.
Right.
Well, we can only go but so far but to look and do just what Christian does every single day. It's hard.
Mhm. Absolutely. And one thing I will speak in reference to our court is that Newport News is the 7th largest court in the Commonwealth. And so with that, with of course multiple divisions. And so we record that even just in the land records department alone, how many a day?
It could be anywhere from 50 to 100, 150 documents sometimes a day. If it really depends on the
Mhm.
market, right? But
Absolutely.
it's so many different things, so many various documents that we'll see,
Mhm.
and we do
Right.
our best. We do our best to ensure that it's a true and authentic document.
Right. And I say that to say there's no way in the world we're going to know everything that's recorded against one piece of property. Unless this is a property that you get things on like every single day, and so you're just familiar with it. And so that's why Mr. Tanner is saying like Christian is the last stop.
Right.
Because again, we're really checking the document procedurally to attest that it's a wet seal, it's been notarized, and procedurally it meets the requirements in order for us to record it.
Under
So
Virginia law, you can prepare your own deed.
absolutely.
So a layman can draw up something, sign it, and bring it to you that's notarized, and in all likelihood, you would put it to record. Any other party has to be a licensed Virginia attorney
Mhm.
that prepares deeds. And that hopefully is some protection that we've got our name on that deed. We prepared that deed for that particular seller. Our name is there and they're checking that. And that's where we've got those in place that protect you, because really it's just the general public can prepare their own deeds, but in 99% of the cases, attorneys are preparing a deed and following your rules in order for us
Absolutely.
to put it to record.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I would say one of the things just to add on is if it seems too good to be true, if you're cutting corners on something, you're sacrificing security for the sake of convenience a lot of times. So just be careful about doing things on your own.
Well put.
Absolutely. So we're going to answer about 2 more questions, and then I'll look through some of the questions that we have from the public. This is one that's from the public, and I'll read it. Christian, can you explain again, and I'm going to shoot this to Christian and Mr. Tanner, how a person is able to access their deed from public records?
Yeah, so we have public terminals. We are required to have access to the public records. So we have public computers that are available. They can call in to request. And we have a secure remote access for title companies. So you can come in and get copies 8 to 4:30, 4:15, excuse me.
Yep, 4:15. We close at 4:30, but our registers shut off at 4:15.
We are open all the time. And we also have access as attorneys' offices, and many title companies who do searches have the same thing. So if you want to access those records, we can access those 24/7 through our remote access, which most attorneys who do real estate, we have that. I think it's critical so that our clients can call us. Please don't call us at 3 a.m. But truly, we are there as well. We can get these documents because y'all have worked out a wonderful system where we can access that information. Yes. I think that was one of the best things that the state ever did, and the local clerk's office, was to make that available to all of us so that we can get in there on a moment's notice.
Absolutely.
Check something out. It's critical. So you're on the firing line, but we can help.
Absolutely. So I want to end our questions with this, and then we'll go to some questions from the audience. Bob and Alan, can you advise the public or tell the public what they should do if they suspect that they've been a victim of deed fraud? who should they contact and what can be done, if anything?
Sure. I think first you would probably want to reach out to your title insurance company to see what protection they can provide if you've got one. Also contact your local police department. You might also reach out to the FBI and the Federal Trade Commission. They've got a website where you can report suspected fraud, and they will distribute that to relevant law enforcement agencies to investigate it. Also, go to the clerk's office and check to see if something's been recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Please call.
Okay.
Act fast if you expect anything. I was told in that situation I spoke about earlier that if it somehow gets out of the country or gets off to a different, maybe a foreign email registered address, that money's gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone. It happens so quickly. And that's the scary part of it. So if you suspect something, get a hold of somebody right away and let us jump into action. Your city attorney, your local police department, your clerk. I mean, we have a network that we try to do everything we can in a quick and efficient way to protect you best we can.
Okay. So we will go to some questions from the audience before we give closing statements. Can anyone get a copy of my deed? Christian.
So deeds are public records. So yes, they can come in and request a copy of it. They would just need to provide us with the address and we'll be able to print it off.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
it's
that
50 cents a page, and then it would be the $2 to certify that instrument. So it's not $2 per sheet, it's $2 for that instrument, for that document.
And another thing, the city assessor's website also has information in reference to who own properties. Our office interface with every branch of government. And so depending on the type of document we're recording or what we're filing, everything goes somewhere. And so one of the offices that we interface with is the city assessor's office. And so once a deed is recorded in any format, whether it's an heir property, whether someone purchased the home, we do transmit that information to the city assessor's office as well. And so even from your own home, if you Google Newport News City Assessor's Office, I can't think of the hyperlink off the top of my head, but if you type that in, it comes up. If you type in the address, who owns that property, and the home ownership chain for that property also comes up. And so property and home ownership is one of those things that under the Code of Virginia, it is public information.
I would caution you that looking at the assessor's website is not the same thing as doing a title search, though. So don't think it's equivalent.
Amen.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Bob.
Bob. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But he's right.
Absolutely. Okay. So they have a question. So if anyone can get a copy of the deed, does that make it easier for someone to commit fraud because they have the language?
Yes, it does. It gives them a format that they can try to retype, sign the owner's name to it, and present it to you through a notary system or a notary public. The answer is yes. I mean, it's there, and I wish I could give you don't worry about it. It's there. It's all
Right.
there, down to the signatures. They know how many water heaters you have in the home. I mean, it's
Right.
just, you've got a lot of information there, and people can use that in the very wrong way.
Mhm.
But we're here to try to protect and encourage things that will protect you in the future, not just from the past, but into the future if things like that happen.
All right. My home is paid off. Does title insurance still cover me?
Yes, it covers you individually for your lifetime.
All right.
Assuming
you're able.
it's a homeowner's policy and it's not just a lender's policy.
Right, yes, yeah. Your lender's expires when the loan goes. Thank you,
Okay.
Bob. You're exactly right there. The lender's goes away, but your homeowner's title insurance policy stays with you forever.
All right. We just paid off our home. Should we look into an enhanced title insurance policy to protect ourselves? Will that also protect us from fraud or forgery?
The answer is yes, and most title companies are ready, willing, and able to sell you an owner's policy. They will perform a title search, though. They will go down and make sure that they're not putting their agency at risk. The title insurance industry is there to protect, but they're smart people too. They want to make sure before they protect you that they've checked it all out and they're comfortable with it. And in most cases, they will be. That's a very good question, and something, when you've got that much cash on the line and home values now are through the roof, you may want those protections, and you can get those protections from your title insurance companies. Please seek the advice of an attorney or a title company. They can talk to you about that.
I see a question on here that is more in line with probate. The person whose father passed away in December, I do see your message. If you can send us an email at ccourt@nnva.gov or probate@nnva.gov, I will make sure we get a answer to you. We are not ignoring you, but that's a very detailed question, and we can cover that for you, but please send us an email. Again, that's going to be probate, PROBATE @nnva.gov, or you can also send it to ccourt@nnva.gov. Someone has a question about, can they get enhanced owner's insurance on land?
Yes.
That's a good question too. What does the title insurance cover?
About 45 specific things. Frauds, forgeries, missing heirs are typically those things that pop to mind. But there's certain zoning violations or permit issues that can be protected well if your former owner didn't really follow all the rules in getting their permits. And Bob sees this all the time where, hey, I can't get a permit to put in my deck or whatever it might be because the prior owner, do-it-yourself guy, didn't go to the city and get the proper permits. And there is now coverage to protect you from that. And when I say coverage, it's dollars, but it's basically hiring the people you need to defend or go after whoever did wrong. And that's basically attorney's fees, court cost, and those kinds of things. Bob, you can expand on that.
Yeah, it's really you're going to want to read the policy to see what exactly it covers, and also read the exclusions page on it, because sometimes there'll be things written in there that the title insurance company will refuse to cover because it's something that they'll bring to your attention or something you should be aware of, but it may be where they'll see that, hey, that fence there, that's not quite where it's supposed to be, or it was illegally put up, so we're not going to insure against that. So you want to make sure you read any sort of title binder and title policy that you get from the company, so that you know what exactly you're purchasing, what protection you're getting.
Perfect. So, is there a statute of limitations for corrective action on issues that surface during a title search?
Certain liens expire after certain periods of time. For example, an unreleased deed of trust from a 1980 transaction, based upon the law as to those, could be automatically, by the passage of time, released. But you rarely find those because there's so many different ways to extend them. The statute of limitations can apply, but you've got to be very careful about that, because the person that's owed the money deserves a right to collect their money, so that these documents last for 30 plus years, plus an additional 10 years. Bob, you can speak a little more about statute of limitations and how that.
Yeah, I think you touched on it, Alan. Really, if there's something that's filed out there, you're going to look at it. It's going to be fact specific, and it's really hard to give a blanket answer to that. But like Alan said, most of the deeds of trust out there are going to have their maturity date on it.
Right.
And I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've seen where there hasn't been a release filed after it was paid off.
Right. So Bob, we know that the city has programs in place where they can assist, or that the elderly is exempt for from taxes, certain taxes on their property. They want to know, the audience wants to know, is there anything in place from the city to assist the elderly to protect their deeds?
Not that I'm aware of. And my office wouldn't really be able to assist with that. We represent the city. We can't provide the advice to the private citizens like that.
Right.
I'm not aware of a program. I think that'd really be something that would be covered by the private sector right now.
Okay, thank you.
When we do our search, we check every possible tax that's the city might have that would be a lien against the real estate. That is our job. That is the title company's job to ensure that as well. That any back taxes, and they could be things like rollback taxes, elderly exemptions, elderly deferrals. There are many different taxes that change by virtue of the decedent passing away, and the limitation of actions changes. So we got to check them on every deal we do to make sure the taxes have been paid, because they take priority over everything.
Right.
Just about.
Right. So last question, and I'm gonna throw this one to you, Alan, and then I want to ask everyone for closing remarks. How long, in your opinion or your experience, will the bank hold the title once the loan is paid off or forgiven by that same bank?
That is a great question. Banks are required, once they're paid off, to file what is called a certificate of satisfaction within a specific number of days. And if they don't do that, they can be fined by the owner of the property for not releasing that mortgage in a timely fashion. And then they, because your only remedy is to go to court, attorney's fees, things like that can flow from it. But they have a very specific time to release that mortgage from the courthouse records. One of the big problems are equity lines, or those you got to be very careful with those as a borrower. If you put a line of credit or home equity line on your house and you think you've paid it all down to zero, well, it's all down to zero, but that lien is still there, where you could increase it at any time. A seller could, after they've sold it, because it's still a lien on the house if it's not picked up. So if you have a home equity line or a line of credit and you've paid it off and you want to cut it out, stop it, and get it released, you have to now specifically send a letter to the bank and say, release this equity line off the courthouse records.
And Madam Clerk, I think it's also important to add as well, the clerk's office does not hold deeds. So we don't hold your deed while you're paying your mortgage. So if somebody's telling you, okay, the clerk's office, it's their responsibility to send me a copy of my deed once I paid off my mortgage, that is not a responsibility of the clerk's office. We record, and once we record the document, we return it back to the scrivener, the preparer, we return it back to the title company. So we do not hold documents, we do not send out deeds once you've paid off your mortgage.
Right.
You can certainly obtain copies in the method that we went over, but we don't hold the original.
So this is another question. Look, one more, I promise. Since there is a risk of fraud, is there any consideration being given to make it so that these are not public information in the future?
No.
No.
That won't ever happen.
Mm-hmm.
Our system is based on notice to the public. Anytime you have a legal document that you want to, for real estate, you have to give notice to everybody in order for you to have a complete title.
All right, well, we'll start with you, Christian, with your closing remarks. Then we'll kick it to you, Mr. Tanner, and we will close with you, Mr. Pealo.
Yes, so I think it was very important today just to highlight the importance of title insurance, of the cases of fraud that we have been made aware of in our panels and meetings with the Clerks Association. They don't have title insurance. A lot of the times they don't have title insurance. So I think it's just important that we stay educated and we understand what our role is in preventing fraud and preventing theft of property. It's a big investment, so take your time. That's it.
Well, it's been a true honor for Cindy and me to have been here tonight to be a part of this. I've been doing it a long time. I love what I do. I'm a lawyer that helps people buy and sell houses. You have to do the same thing every single time the same way. There's no corner cutting. It is frustrating for many people to hear what we have to tell them, but you've got to do it exactly right. And it's great to have wonderful people that help us in that process. And I thank you all so much, Christian and Angela, and your teams that you have down there in assisting Cindy with probate issues as she goes through
Absolutely.
it. And I've always enjoyed this. It's been a fun way to make a living as an attorney, and hopefully I've helped a few people out along the way.
Well, thank you.
So echo that, and it's a pleasure to have been asked to participate in this, and I've had a great time tonight. Hope folks who are watching have learned something. I think Christian said it earlier that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Yes,
Trust the process. Make sure you get a title search done, and just protect yourself. And if you see something that's out of the ordinary, you get something in the mail, it's like, this doesn't make sense. Look into it. Check with the clerk's office to see if something's been recorded on your property. Check with your title insurance company. Check with your lender, and just be vigilant.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you all for your time this evening. Time is one of those precious gifts that you just cannot get back. And I know we have all had a long day in the office. So thank you all for spending your evening with me and some of the citizens in Newport News. I also see that some of my staff is on the call. So I also want to thank you all because you just left here not too long ago. So definitely want to thank you all for tuning in this evening also. And last but certainly not least, thank you to all of our viewers tonight. I hope that in some way, even if one person was touched or received information tonight, then I think it was a job well done. So thank you all for tuning in. If your question was not answered or you did not put something in the text box and you want to get information to us, any general inquiry, you can send it to ccourt@nnva.gov. That's ccourt, C as in cat, at nnva.gov. If you have suggestions for our next conversations with the clerk, please feel free to email circuitcommunication@nnva.gov. That's Circuit Communications with the S, at nnva.gov. And in closing, I just want to say that applied knowledge is power. It's not just enough to know it, but when you're able to apply what you know, that is when you will truly be powerful. So thank you all again to our panelists for joining us tonight. And thank you all to the viewing audience for joining us tonight. This will be up hopefully by the end of next week. It will be on the Circuit Court's website. And then again, it will also be on our social media outlets and our YouTube page. So thank you all again, and y'all have a great night. Good night.